Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today are we reviewing Megan. So Megan is a new horror movie that stars a killer doll slash AI. This movie starts off right away with a young girl named Katie, whose parents are tragically killed in a car accident. She's then thrown under the custody of Aunt Gemma, who works at a toy company, and she's working on this secret project called Megan. This is kind of the greatest doll of all time, a doll that can truly interact with a child, can communicate in ways that we have never seen in the past, kind of the toy to end all toys. And as you can expect from a film like this, things go horribly wrong. The doll becomes a maniac killer, everything that you expect from a film like this. And I have to say, the movie is a pretty fun ride. It feels very similar to me as the Child's Play film from 2019, has very similar themes, even down to the fact that the doll is kind of this advancement in AI technology. It integrates with your home, things like that. It feels very similar to that. It also bleeds into the aspects of Black Mirror. That's why I wanted to wear my Black Mirror sweatshirt. That's one of my favorite shows of all time. So I love that it kind of blends those elements. It takes the more serious nature of kind of the theory of AI spiraling out of control and taking over humanity, but then also keeps it kind of light and funny at sometimes, like Child's Play. Violet McGraw plays Katie in this movie, and we've seen her previously in other horror films and horror shows, and I think she does a good job. It may come off a little bit annoying because she freaks out a lot in the movie, but I think it really goes to tell how her character is being influenced by Megan, how she's kind of losing control of her idea of what a parent is, what her friends are. She's so reliant on this doll that she's lashing out at her friends and family. So I think even though it may seem kind of ridiculous at times the way she's acting, it kind of is genuine to how a child would act if they're kind of basically having their neurochemistry just totally messed up with this interaction with this doll. Now, Allison Williams plays Aunt Gemma, and I think as the movie goes on, I think her performance gets better and better. Early on in the film, she feels very one note. She's someone who only cares about her job. She's kind of the stereotypical workaholic that kind of puts everything to the side, including her niece. But then as the movie goes on, she starts to understand these bonds and the importance of human interaction and parenthood. So I think those themes are really powerful. They may not be the most well executed thing in the film. It kind of feels a little ham-fisted and thrown in towards the end of the movie, because that's the idea. It keeps building up this idea of this doll is a bad idea. Everyone thinks it's a bad idea outside of a handful of people, and that's something that may be difficult for an audience to watch, but with horror movies, you have to have this suspension of belief that okay, people are going to make bad decisions. If everybody made good decisions in horror movies, we wouldn't have horror movies. But that being said, I do think the first 30, 40 minutes of the movie is a little bit too much of a setup. It is a little slow. It takes a while to really get into full gear. But when it fully devolves into this killer doll movie, it's really a blast to watch if you like those kind of films. But I think the real standouts in this movie are Amy Donald and Jenna Davis, who both play Megan in different facets. One does the voice, the other does kind of the physical acting. And I think that's where this movie kind of excels in ways that maybe other movies like this haven't in the past. It feels, like I said, very inspired from Child's Play. So if you like Child's Play, you'll probably like this. But the movements of the doll, the speaking patterns, everything about it is so uncanny that when you're seeing her on screen, you're like, something is just off about this doll immediately. The facial expressions, like I said, the movements, and they do a great job of capitalizing on that. I think the overall technical execution of Megan as a character and as a doll is really well done. There's some scenes where they're using CG, there's a lot of scenes where it's practical effects, and like I said, it looks very unsettling. That's the one thing about this movie. It may not be the scariest movie in the world, but it's just really creepy. And the doll is just so bizarre and takes over any scene that it's in. And even though those performances are all really solid, there are some supporting characters in this movie that are really purely kind of comic relief and just fodder for Megan. And I will say, you are rooting for the doll by the end with a lot of these characters. Particularly, there's a boss character that is just so poorly written, in my opinion. He's just such an unlikable person, and there's just this one-note guy who's just a bad guy. And it's not the actor's fault. I don't even know if it's the writing's fault. We're supposed to make this guy totally unlikable, so you're kind of rooting for his demise by the end of the movie. But he's just annoying whenever he's on screen, in my opinion, and I don't think it really adds a whole lot to the film. And if you're someone who is really into horror films and you want to see some brutal kills, this movie doesn't really have that. It has it in some capacity, but it is PG-13, so it's not totally graphic, but it is kind of more accessible for someone who doesn't want to see a really gory movie. For example, my wife went with this to me, and she doesn't like gory horror movies, so she wasn't really bothered by any of it. Again, the two places where I think this movie does excel is the practical application of the doll on screen and those performances linked to that, and then some of the themes. We're talking about AI taking over for parenting, the idea of people, especially children, being so ingrained with technology that they kind of lose a little bit of humanity and that relationship with the other people around them. I mean, you see it every day, especially through the pandemic, people working virtually, children working and going to school virtually, that they kind of lose something. And this movie really capitalizes on that on kind of the biggest scale possible, basically having a robot take over as a parent, a sibling, and a friend, and how that can affect a child in a way. And then the idea of guilt and the idea of loss and trying to teach children through a traumatic event, how difficult that can be, and how that really does take a human touch to deal with some of the hardest issues in life. So overall, if I were to rate Megan, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. A lot better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be a cheap Child's Play knockoff. And while it does feel like it's obviously heavily influenced by Child's Play, it feels like its own standalone film. I feel like we could see Megan moving forward as a franchise. So if you ended up checking out Megan, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Seems like people really enjoyed it, so I'd love to hear different opinions of what everybody's thinking about it. So again, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.